Before diving into this story, hit that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe, because here, every story is a new emotion you won't want to miss. Letters to a Stranger. The house stood at the end of a narrow alley in Parody, Brazil, wrapped in wild purple bougainvillea climbing the old stone wall. Isabella had bought the crumbling property, hoping to turn it into a quiet refuge, far from the chaos of the newsroom where she worked. The neighbors said the house once belonged to a reclusive woman who had vanished without a trace. But Isabella was drawn not by the mystery, but by the wide windows, the scent of old wood, and the promise of silence. During the renovation, while tearing down a wall in what had once been a study, the workers found a dusty wooden box sealed with an embroidered ribbon. Inside, there were dozens of letters, all written in elegant cursive, dated between 1952 and 1960. Every one of them was addressed to a man named Enrique. None had ever been sent. For days, Isabella stayed up reading those letters by the warm glow of her bedside lamp. They were filled with longing, with love, with silent waiting. A woman named Amelia had poured her heart into them, writing as if each word might bridge the distance between her and the man who had vanished. In one of the final letters, Amelia wrote, "If these words ever find their way to you, I hope love still has a place to live." Isabella couldn't quite explain what moved her so deeply. Maybe it was the tenderness in the way the words reached out across time. Maybe it was because she too had grown tired of silence and emotional distance. One of the letters came with a faded photograph. Enrique was young, with thoughtful eyes and a soft smile. Compelled by empathy or something deeper, Isabella wrote a letter in return. She addressed it to Enrique, as if he might still be out there, waiting. She left the letter inside the box and placed it at the house's entrance, a symbolic gesture. 2 days later, a new envelope appeared, written in masculine handwriting. "If you're reading this, you've found my memories." The sender's name was Raphael. He claimed to be Henrique's grandson. By chance or fate, he had visited the house as a child and remembered his grandmother Amelia mentioning lost letters. He thanked Isabella for finding them, and just like that, a correspondence began between two strangers, like two travelers crossing the same river in different boats. The letters became ritual. Raphael was a historian living in São Paulo. Through his words, Isabella learned that Enrique had disappeared during Brazil's military regime. Accused of treason for helping persecuted friends, he was never seen again. Amelia had waited for him her whole life, convinced he would return. Isabella shared her own wounds, the estrangement from her mother, the quiet ending of an engagement, the exhaustion of always being strong. Raphael responded with empathy, with quiet understanding, with poetry. It was as if she'd rediscovered a forgotten part of herself through these carefully written words. One day, Raphael wrote to say he was in Parody, staying at the inn down the street, but he hadn't found the courage to knock. "Maybe we've built something too with our words," he wrote, "and reality might break it. Full with our words," he wrote. Isabella smiled as she read. She replied, "Words only brought us this far. Now it's time to live them." He came the next morning. He carried the faded photo of Enrique in his jacket pocket and had kind eyes. It felt like they already knew each other. They walked to the beach and sat on the sand. For long, comfortable minutes, they said nothing, until Isabella finally spoke. "Why do you think your grandmother kept the letters?" Raphael looked at the sea. "Maybe because the things we write stay, even when everything else disappears. Maybe because she believed someone would find them one day. And you, what were you looking for?" she asked. "I was trying to understand where I came from," he said. "Now I think I've found where I want to go." In the months that followed, Isabella and Raphael turned the house into a cultural space. They called it the House of Letters. It became a sanctuary for people with unfinished stories, people who needed to write what had never been said, to be heard. The house came back to life, and so did Isabella. One Sunday, while organizing an old trunk in the basement, Raphael found a different envelope. Inside was one final letter from Amelia, the handwriting trembling, barely legible. It was addressed to whoever finds these words. She wrote, "True love writes its own stories, even when they seem lost in the past. If you've read this far, then love has outlived time. And that's all that matters." Isabella folded the letter carefully and held it against her chest. The story between her and Raphael wasn't made of perfect endings or grand promises. It was made of truth, of listening, of patience. They learned that sometimes answers arrive slowly, but they do arrive. That healing the past allows the present to blossom. And that no matter how unlikely it seems, when two souls recognize each other, no letter is ever truly lost.